So our Dart SDK setup has been done. Let me introduce you to this course. I have designed this course especially for beginners with keeping Flutter development in my mind. If you have already know Dart programming language, stay with me. I have some advanced topics to cover, especially in object-oriented programming section, or you can check out my Flutter development playlist. I will drop some widget related video and we will make some special projects in Flutter. So why learn Dart? The main reason of learning Dart to develop a Flutter app. There is barely someone who is here without this reason. So what is Dart? Dart is a high-level programming language designed and developed by Google for Flutter development. It is highly inspired by JavaScript and it took some great features from other programming languages like C#, JavaScript, Java and combined it together and made itself a very powerful programming language. So without further ado, let's begin our coding section. Okay, let's create our first Dart program. So I will name this as hello. Make sure the extension is .dart and here we go. So like all other programming language, Dart also have a main function. This is a top level function. This is the entry point of our program. So I'll write void main, then a parenthesis, then this body of this function with a curly braces. So first I will execute a print statement to show you a output. Let's write hello world. Save this file and run it. And here we go. Our hello world is here. Let's understand what happening here. So this print is a built-in function and it shows us output. It takes only single argument. This hello world is a single argument entirely. So what about we put a 100 and run this program again? So the 100 is here. But what about we give a comma and give another argument? So as you can see, this program is giving an error. It won't be compiled. So this print function doesn't take more than one argument. We will discuss more about this later after discussing about variables and data types. Let's start with variables. So I will create another file called variable .dart. Same, we will create a main function here. So what is variable? Variable is a container where we assign or put some values and later we use it. So in Dart there are two major ways to define a variable. The first one is explicitly define a variable, and the second one is implicitly define a variable. So we will discuss about how to declare a variable explicitly when we will learn data type, but now we will focus on how to declare a variable implicitly. So there are three keywords to declare a variable implicitly. The first one is var, the second one is final, and the third one is constant. So let's declare a variable with var keyword. Now if we hover over this name, you will see it says it's a string, but we didn't declare it as a string. So why this is happening? Because Dart supports type inference. So if you didn't mention or explicitly declare the data type of the variable, the Dart compiler will automatically detect what type of variable it is, what is its data type. So if we again declare another variable, and if we hover over this age, it will say it's an integer. What about a pi? Now if we hover over this pi, it will say it's a double. That means the Dart compiler automatically detecting the data type. We'll learn data type more in this video later, but now let me print the values of this variable. I will use string interpolation here because the print statement doesn't take multiple arguments. If I try name, age, and pi, as you can see, this doesn't take any. So I have to do is create a string interpolation and use a $sign name, then I can use again age, and I can print pi. So if I print it, so as you can see, my name, my age, and the value of pi is printing here. But can I change the values of this variable? Definitely. If I change the name and age, okay, let's print it using interpolation. As you can see, my name is Batman and my age is 60 now. But what about if can I change the name to a integer value like 70? No, because the name is already assigned as a string, but this 70 is a integer, so I can't declare or change to another data type. So I have to assign a string to this variable. Now it's fine. If I print this name, I hope it perfectly prints, or I can directly print it. So as you can see, my name is printing here. But what about I want to declare a variable now, but I want to assign a value to it later? It is also possible using var keyword. For example, I am declaring a variable var x and I want to assign a value later. So I can do multiple things, and after that I can assign a value to it, for x is equals to 100. This is perfectly fine. And if I run this, and you can see the value of x is here. So we have learned how to declare a variable implicitly using var keyword, and using var keyword we can assign a value to it immediately or later on. And if we declare a variable using var keyword, we can modify its value as much time as we want. Just we have to keep in mind that the data type is not changed. But what about the other two, final and constant? If we declare a variable using const keyword, that means we can't modify this variable later. For example, const a is equals to 6.90. Okay, so if we hover over here, you will see it's still a double. That means the type inference is still here. But if I want to modify this value, a equals to 9.1, as you can see, it is giving an error. That means I can't modify this variable. What about if I try to declare this variable here and want to assign a value later, 10.10? This is also not possible in terms of constant. We have to assign a value immediately when we are declaring a variable. A is equals to 9.78. Here, that's it. But in terms of final keyword, okay, before go to final, let me print this a value, and let me comment out all of this. and if I print it here, so as you can see, my a is equals to 9.78. So what about final? Unlike constant, final is a runtime constant. That means once a value is assigned to it, it is immutable now. But while declaring a final value, we can assign it later. For example, final x. So as you can see, it's not giving an error. So I can assign a value to it later. X is equals to 90. And I can still print it. So as you can see, my 90 is here. Let me comment this. But what about I want to modify it? X is equals to 100. So as you can see, it's not possible here. So what is the difference between constant and final? Both of them are almost similar, but the significant difference between final and constant is compile time constant. That means when the code is compiling, from that moment the variable is immutable or not modifiable. But in terms of final, there is a flexibility. This is runtime constant. That means when the code is running and a value is assigned to it, from that moment this variable is immutable. Let me give you an example. Suppose you want to take an user input and do not want to modify this variable. So what would you do? So I want to take a user input. I will later explain how to take user input. So .io and print enter something. Later I want to declare a final variable, and in this variable I want to assign the user input. So this user input will be assigned as a string value. So I want to print it then the value of it. Okay, let me run this program. Okay, enter something. Let me just run Batman. So you entered Batman, but what about I want to do it as a constant, const x. So as you can see, this is not possible because when the code is compiling, it doesn't get any value. So that's why this is giving me an error. But if I want to use a var, just for example, and later I want to modify it, x is equals to Iron Man, and I want to print it, modify it to my variable, then run this code, enter something. I use Batman. So as you can see, I entered Batman, but it is modifiable. But if I use final, so here you can see it's giving an error. That means this is not modifiable. So once the value is assigned to it, it's immutable or not modifiable. So that's the difference between final, var, and constant keyword while declaring a variable. In the next session, we will discuss about data type, typecasting, and user input. If you want to see those videos, make sure to subscribe, and if you want to learn about Flutter, please check out my channel. Thank you.